Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm here with Ashley Marcotte of Numeracle at HIMSS. Ashley, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Doug.
So Ashley, we just talked to Molly Weiss about the importance of patient well-being and connection with them being able to actually trust the communication that they're getting from healthcare providers, from medical institutions, and so on. Ashley, you're going to talk to us about Numeracle's work on the issue of identity.
Yes.
So I see on the little on the screen here that we have up in the Numeracle booth, identity for scale. Tell me a little about it.
So what you probably heard from Molly as well is that Numeracle's mission is to restore trust, and part of that is using identity as the keystone in outbound calling. What that means is that our whole platform is an identity engine based on know your customer rigor. So especially in the healthcare space, where it's so critical for those calls to reach the intended recipients. So think about appointment setting or other critical information that you need to get to those end callers, end users. You need to make sure that they're going to pick up because they trust that call that's coming across. So at Numeracle, we have identity as the base of all of our solutions. And it's important, right? Because in the voice and CX strategies that contact centers are using, that there's a lot of investment that's being made in those platforms. Think about all the AI and the dedication to customer experience. Well, what happens when those callers are making those calls and the end recipients do not pick up those calls because they don't trust them? Or worst case, they do pick up and it's a bad actor who's hijacked that experience. So it is so critical to make sure that identity is the root of that outbound calling experience.
So have you been discussing this with people attending the show here at HIMSS?
Yeah, absolutely, because folks are trying to understand what is it beyond just spam labeling, right? Hey, I have a call coming across and it's showing up as spam. When you really talk about what the root issue is and that you need to make sure there's a legitimacy of the enterprises and organizations who are making those calls and they have that right to use those assets like telephone numbers, it really starts to click that identity needs to be at the root of all voice communications. I think there's an industry report from Verizon that says 60% of all data breaches, for example, are attributed to some type of human element, like social engineering. And when you look at things like email security has become much more robust, but voice still remains that last fraud vector that's pretty weak, right? So you need to make sure that you're working with a partner who has this rigor in place and a programmatic approach to make sure that identity is the root of allowing that trusted communication across the network.
Now we're at HIMSS, this is a healthcare information show. Are there special needs that medical institutions, hospitals, medical centers, private practice and so on, are there special needs that they need with regard to identity?
Absolutely, because those hospitals, as I said before, they need to be able to ensure that those calls, those communications are getting to their patients. And not only from the fact that from a contact rate, being able to say that those calls are connecting, but it is critical information that's being shared on those calls. So you need to make sure that as a healthcare organization, that you're protecting that, not just the client experience, but again, think of all the regulatory and compliance that, surrounds healthcare. You want to make sure that that voice channel is part of that, for lack of a better term, your security program and posture, because voice still remains one of the last, when you look at how cybersecurity has evolved over the last, 15 years, voice for a lot of folks sits outside of that program. And so how do you start looking at pulling voice into that program and making sure that at the end of the day, that you are making sure the best interests of your clients, your patients are, at the forefront of your communication strategy, essentially.
Ashley, this week in Las Vegas, we have the HIMSS show. We also have the Enterprise Connect show, kind of sort of next door.
Yep.
You were there yesterday. Maybe you'll be there today. Did you have an additional message for the enterprise community at large?
Yeah, enterprise and partners. So Numeracle at whole, it has a dedicated focus on trust at scale for both enterprises and partners. And they have different driving forces for each of them. And what I'd say is that whether you are a partner who is starting to see increased regulatory pressure coming down in terms of validating who's on your network. You're looking at figuring out how do we address KYC standards. We want to have the gold standard in terms of process and program. Then you want to work with a partner like Numeracle, because we already have that formed, right? That's the basis of everything that we do, is that identity platform based on KYC. And we've created a very scalable program for our partners where they can start small and grow, and then they can realize that value. And for many of them, they're looking at this as a tool to address some of that regulatory requirement that's coming down. So an operational investment that needs to be made, but then you can create revenue streams on top of that, right? And then when you look at our enterprises, they're no different than those healthcare providers that we're talking about, right? They're experiencing that pain directly, where they're having their calls not connect. They're worried about their customers, you know, if they do pick up, making sure that their brand's protected, because they know it's that organization is the one that is actually making that call. And so they want to, again, preserve that customer experience. So enterprises and healthcare providers are not dissimilar in that way. And then we have partners, as I mentioned, who are trying to address that same problem for their clients who are facing these challenges around mislabeling and essentially trust at the end of the day, which is why identity is so important to be at the root of the whole solution.
Ashley, I really want to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for taking time out here at a busy day at HIMSS, and also dropping by over at Enterprise Connect as well. Where can we learn more about Numeracle and also this issue?
So you can stop by our booth here at HIMSS, where we are setting up meetings. You can go to our website at numeracle.com, where you can request more information as well. But we're happy for anyone to come by and just talk with us and figure out where we might fit in the overall strategy that you're looking to address.
Ashley, again, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Doug.